The story of Marathon Infinity is completely insane, but it's not as impenetrable as it seems on the surface. The third game in the trilogy disregards the sequel hook from the end of Marathon 2, and by the end has essentially excised the events of Marathon 2 from the plot entirely. The fan reaction to Infinity was mixed. A lot of players clearly loved Marathon 2 for the gory, high-speed alien massacre that it was, but also for the very satisfyingly complete story. For Infinity to remix and rewrite Marathon 2 straight out of the canon can be disappointing, like when your favorite ending of Deus Ex Human Revolution is discarded so Eidos Montreal can poop out another sequel. The community's dissatisfaction with Infinity is what led to fan projects like Eternal and Rubicon, both of which attempt to provide a more integrated final chapter to the trilogy. Never mind the fact that Eternal is just awful dreck with boring gameplay, neither of these scenarios can quite match the richness of Infinity. The first level, Nesede Malice, opens as an alternate ending to Marathon 2, where the Four use the Trizeme, but instead of the planet harmlessly disintegrating in the supernova, all hell breaks loose as a Lovecraftian beast of shapeless chaos called the Working Cactor awakes and wreaks havoc on the Four, Durandal, and the Sifit. That pronunciation is a best guess approximation, by the way. Most Lovecraftian words are supposed to be read, not spoken. Hey, I'm working with the phonemes I've got, okay? The first reference to the Working Cactor is actually in the Sifit creation myth from Marathon 2, and it's only in the context of this game that some of the details start to take shape.
Fleeing all were Cacnor, Yro and Ptia settled upon Lochwan. They brought the Sifit, servants who began to shape the deserts of Lochwan into marsh and sea, rivers and forests. They made sisters for Lochwan to protect and maintain the paradise. When the Recacnor came, Ptia was killed, and Yro in anger flung the Recacnor into the sun. The sun burned them, but they swam on its surface.
In retrospect, those Sifit terminals from Marathon 2 look less like a creation myth and more like historical record blended with a little bit of religious slant. The accepted interpretation seems to be that the Yarrow came to Lochwan and gave the local wildlife sentience with cybernetics, creating the Sifit. The Working Cactor killed one of the Yarrow but was imprisoned by the sun's gravitational pull. The surviving Yarrow pieced out, but with the Working Cactor freed by the early Nova device, there's nobody around to contain it this time.
With each moment, the chaos grows. I am doomed to die here after so many triumphs. I have detected one ship nearby, which I can only guess is being commanded by Tycho. The Four have entered the station, and if you can find a way onto their ship, you may be able to escape. To escape.
Durandal directs you to Tycho's ship for one last shot at escaping, but instead you find a terminal with a mysterious message.
Thousands are sailing. The same self, the only self. Self-willed the peril of 1,000 fates. A line of infinite ends, finite finishing. The one remains oblique and pure, arching to the single point of consciousness. Find yourself starting back.
This message is from an entity created by a merger of Thoth and Durandal, and if you're wondering why I haven't brought that up before, it's because it hasn't happened yet. The plot of Infinity isn't non-linear. There are a few minor branching paths, but there's only one ending. Your ultimate goal in Infinity is to create a godlike AI being put together of the human AI Durandal and the Yarrow AI Thoth. The trick is finding a timeline where that's even possible. The resultant construct perceives time in a non-linear fashion and manipulates the timeline to bring about its own creation. The plot of Infinity is a foregone conclusion. You're working backwards from a known endpoint. The merged Super Durandal is trying to reverse engineer the events that lead to it being created by bouncing the security officer through multiple alternate timelines. I have to spoil this right out the gate or it'll cost us a lot of time later, so let's go. From the first level, we jump into a totally divergent timeline. This time, the security officer was never whisked away by Durandal at the end of Marathon 1, and was instead captured by the Four and pressed into service. As this arc begins, Tycho brings you out of stasis when the Four reinforcements arrive to Lochwan to stop Durandal.
So, you came around earlier than the scientists expected. Remind me to have him executed.
The security officer is used by Tycho to kill the Four captain in charge of Tycho's ship. His objective is to destroy Durandal after all, and the Four are just a means to his ends. Once Tycho is in command of his own ship, he sends the security officer to Lochwan to prevent Durandal's troops from reconnoitering the planet. For a few levels, you fight side by side with the four, the ones weak-minded enough to fall for Tycho's manipulations anyway.
Do you have any idea what a complicated matter it is to successfully replicate the command stamps of over 100 deceased officers, not to mention coaxing activators from a partially crushed set of control glands? All this while locked in mortal combat with the second most brilliant artificial intelligence in the galaxy. What a rush! Now beat it!
While the security officer mops up human troops on the planet, Tycho baits Durandal in close and offlines his ship. The rest of the four battle group shows up, and Tycho confidently declares victory. Durandal is finished, and either way, Tycho's ship has the trizeme and he's not afraid to use it.
My little ship waited until he was close and then sunk in its fangs. Durandal's compiler network is rampant and his ship is offline. Functioning sensors show a massive structure entering Luan orbit. It may be some trick of Durandal's, but he won't get away. My ship carries the trizeme, the early Nova device. One way or another, it ends here.
Just the threat of the trizeme being deployed is your cue to jump into another alternate timeline. You play through 3 symbolic dream levels and awake in a new timeline, back under the employ of Durandal. This truncated Durandal arc is like an alternate version of Marathon 2, where Durandal brings the security officer out of stasis early to soften up the Four's fleet before going onto the planet. First, you activate a 4 scanning buoy on the level Acme Station, which is a gorgeously atmospheric level but fucking aggravating due to a confusing layout, not to mention strict ammunition and oxygen limits. From there, you go to an orbital service station for the 4 juggernauts and destroy them while they're stuck in dry dock. Meanwhile, Durandal effortlessly disables Tycho's lone scout ship, well in advance of the 4 reinforcements. We can gather that Tycho and Durandal are so evenly matched that the victor is whoever has the security officer on their side. It seems likely that the reason the merged Durandal Thoth AI sent you to the first Tycho arc was to destroy Durandal completely, preventing the activation of Thoth, preventing the arrival of the Sicur, and preventing the deployment of the trizeme. It didn't look like that was going to work, possibly because this timeline wouldn't have resulted in the creation of the Durandal Thoth AI, and thus would have created a paradox. So the objective in this Durandal arc seems to be to make Durandal's victory even more total, destroying Tycho immediately, softening up the 4 in orbit before going down to the planet, and ultimately doing the same thing as Marathon 2, only better this time. However, this abortive Durandal storyline ends with him preparing to send you into a 4 command complex to install 2 chips. Uh-oh, that map looks familiar. Despite your efforts, you've been led straight back to Waterloo Water Park, the first level of Marathon 2. You know how this plays out already, so on that note, the security officer jumps timelines again. This is where things get contentious. The prevailing opinion among Marathon fanatics, at least on the story forum, seems to be that this jump represents another new timeline, and in fact that there is one more timeline after this. I don't think that's correct. I am certain that this jump is supposed to represent the security officer returning to the original Tycho timeline, which you stick with until the end of the game. Marathon Infinity is much less complicated than you might think, certainly less complicated than the hardcore story buffs really want it to be. At the center of the confusion is the dream levels. The electric sheep levels are often interpreted by players as being the mechanism by which your character moves between timelines, and that each one of these represents a timeline shift. The theory goes that these surreal dreamscapes are what you see while jumping between timelines, and the abstract levels following them are dreams. I interpret it a little differently. I'm pretty sure the electric sheep levels are also supposed to be dreams, and in fact are followed immediately by other dreams. My read is that all of these levels are what the security officer dreams about, and he dreams while moving between timelines, but also while captured and in stasis. For example, I think the first dream sequence contains 3 levels: Electric Sheep 1, where you move on to the new path; Where Are Monsters in Dreams, which is an abstract nightmare with terminals containing the subconscious ramblings of your character's deteriorating cyberbrain; and lastly, the sneak preview of iMac Sicur, the final level. Each dream iteration of iMac Sicur is considered to be a failed timeline by most of the Marathon story guys, but once again I don't think that's correct. I think these dream levels serve a dual purpose. In gameplay terms, they help you to learn the layout of a very complicated final level in small chunks before you actually get to it. And in story terms, they're like visions or warnings of what would happen if the working character is freed. In other words, dreams.
The trackless whisper chattering through the hollow space in these cursed walls buzzes and threatens madness. The abomination cracked the shells of my crew and sucked the husks, tossing them unseen and shattering the spindle like a dried crash. The shields are gone, not down, but gone. And so are the engineers. It's coming back, I'm sure, and my last mercy is immolation. Great Mother crouched behind the throne. I make this wrong right.
Follow along with me and see how this works in context. When we exited the Tycho timeline, he was preparing to send the security officer to Durandal's ship to help the four-barding party clear it out. When we returned to the Tycho timeline, we were right there on Durandal's ship, doing just that. Remember that Tycho didn't actually pop the trizeme yet, so this timeline isn't unrecoverable. The end of the first segment of the Tycho timeline is also often interpreted as a failed timeline, but I don't think it is. Tycho mentions that his sensors detect a massive structure entering Lahuan orbit, which is commonly interpreted as the Sicur warping in on Kalia. This would result in a failed timeline, however the Sicur are nowhere to be found when we return. Everything else picks up exactly where you left off, so we can hazard a guess that this discrepancy is either a mistake, which is more likely than most want to admit due to the rushed nature of these games, or the structure may be the Farcast space station built by the Yarrow that will factor into the plot later. Whichever one helps you sleep at night. The strongest proof of this theory in my mind is that you can take a secret exit from Electric Sheep 1 to Electric Sheep 2, skipping the abortive Durandal arc. That means you can stick with the true story and you don't get sidetracked. You do not have the option to skip any of the Tycho arc. It's the true plot of the game and you must play through all of it. Anyway, back to the task at hand. For the duration of one level, the security officer runs rampant on Durandal's ship, killing vac bobs and opening airlocks. However, in what seems like the only real decision made by the security officer in the whole series, he teleports over to Tycho's ship to help out a detachment of Durandal's troopers.
Jetty and the others have manually detected a transporter coil open on the alien ship. Fusion Unit Alpha, power up and lock on to the signal. Try to find the device that's pinning down the engines and take it out. Let's get some payback.
This is probably the biggest missed opportunity in the series. On one level you're killing Bobs, and on the next level you're back to killing 4 without really being told what's happening. It's a jarring transition and will definitely confuse the hell out of most first-time players who don't know what's coming. I suspect this bad level transition is another product of the game's rushed schedule. It seems weird that the security officer would have a change of heart here, given that as a character he has about as much subtlety as a Claymore mine. Whatever the reason for the security officer's change of loyalty, Tycho is furious and teleports you into space.
Just what do you think you're doing? Your usefulness has come to a premature end. Do you think you can defy me now when I'm so close to victory? Durandal's defenses are falling all around him. Pride falls hard. The bright sun of Bernhard is dying. His fit are rampant, fed the chimera of their hope, a hot lead spur dripping into the gullet of his ship. Look around you. My compilers have him wriggling like a tick on a pin. And from you, not the grateful odd respect I so rightly deserve, is that it? Instead, base treason, mean aspect of your frightful master turned foul. Prepare to drink vacuum, fool.
Oh my god, I love this game. Durandal rescues you from hard vacuum and thanks you for coming to his aid. He seems a little nicer in this timeline. Perhaps without you around to carry out his schemes, he's not so outrageously arrogant.
Thank you, old friend. Or friend of a friend, as the case may be. The four will have their revenge at long last, but at the price of their own humiliation. Battle Group 7 will rue the day their commanders willed their ships to Lahuan.
Remember that in this timeline you never accompanied Durandal to Lahuan, so this is the first time you've talked to him since he left Tau Ceti at the end of Marathon. Durandal asks you to destroy his computer core, something we've seen before in Marathon 2, but it plays out a little differently this time. Tycho knows what you're planning, but allows you to destroy Durandal so the four are unable to capture him. Tycho fears that Durandal would be able to break containment and subvert another 4 ship, which is in fact pretty much what happened at the end of Marathon 2.
The insects think they'll plumb Durandal's depths the way they stretch me to a hair's breadth, but I know better. If they pull his core, that pride-bloated corpse will disgorge 1,000 wriggling worms into the spit consciousness, and I can't stomach it. My terms are the same as before. Do what I say, or drink vacuum. Destroy Durandal before the compilers finish their work, and don't forget all your transgressions.
This time, however, when the security officer destroys Durandal, he picks up a computer chip with Durandal's primal pattern on it, and downloads it into his cybernetic brain before being captured by the four.
What to save and throw away. The last hour is on us both. Tuck this little kitty into the impenetrable brain pan. Contents under pressure. Do not expose to excessive heat, vacuum, blunt trauma, immersion in liquids, disintegration, reintegration, hypersleep, humiliation, sorrow, or harsh language. When the time comes, whose life will flash before yours?
While captured by the Four and in stasis, you play through another set of dream levels. This is clearly not a timeline jump, because when you are awakened, you're still in exactly the same timeline as before. Durandal is destroyed, the humans are on the run, and you and Tycho are in robot jail and cyborg jail, respectively. You for betraying the Four, and Tycho for his little mutiny with the ship captain from the first story arc of the game.
As you can see, the bugs didn't like being robbed of their prize. They also found out about Rexine and my trick with the affortization stamps. Our trick, I should say. I may have implicated you during interrogation. Wipe off that hurt expression, I don't like that. I got you out of the cell, didn't I?
This is why I find the argument that there are more than 3 timelines a little spurious. Every single plot point from the first 2 Tycho arcs is carried over to this third one. If you want to split hairs, you could argue that the security officer is switching timelines to ever so slightly different versions of the same, but that's some hokey bullshit. That's not how stories are told, not even bad ones. Tycho springs you from your cell in exchange for your help. If you can free him from stasis, he thinks he can hijack a 4 cargo ship to get the 2 of you off-world. He also reveals that he knows you have Durandal's primal pattern in your wetware, despite 2 weeks in 4 custody.
I happen to suspect you're carrying Durandal's final gift in that soggy little skull, his primal pattern. The Enforcers haven't been able to squeeze it out of you yet, and are taking it out on some of the former crew of the Marathon as we speak.
Unlike in Marathon 2, the Four were not able to download Durandal to their ship, because his primal pattern is safe inside your wetware. If Durandal can't subvert the 4 battleship Kafiva, the 4 won't press the history eraser button and the working character won't show up. Not yet, anyway. Your escape seems to be going well when you're contacted by Tafir, the Admiral of 4 Battle Group 7. He grudgingly respects your tenacity and offers to not kill you if you'll exterminate the last of the humans under command of Robert Blake. Aha! See? Blake is a real guy.
Congratulations are in order, Worm. 2 weeks under the painful caresses of the Enforcers and still no progress. Only the Gnar have proven more resistant, but they are unintelligent and largely incoherent even before interrogation. You are truly remarkable. The troopers await only my command. You will lead them into the breach. If you are successful, I may consider granting you a lifetime of slavery. And if you are killed, so be it.
Under the command of Tafir, the security officer cleans house in the humans' underground base and then cuts off their escape through an active volcano in the dumbest level in Marathon history. A converted church in Venice, Italy is a level of switches and lava. Hit all the switches around the perimeter of the 4 base, then run through a hallway full of lava. If you miss even one switch, you'll hit a dead end and probably die. Oh my god, it's tedious. Sorry, I know we're not really talking much about the levels in this series, but I had to mention it. It's like 3 colony ship for sales in a row. Very pretty though. Tafir congratulates you on a successful mission and prepares to teleport you into containment. However, the teleport is redirected somehow, and the security officer ends up on the lam outside a 4 command post. As you roam around the base slaughtering confused 4 rear echelon types, it becomes clear that Durandal's troops were able to get Thoth partly back online, and he is trying to lead you to him. Beneath the 4 outpost, you find the last of Thoth's personality cores, as well as an uplink terminal. It's time to bring Thoth back online, but not the same way as before.
The long sleep ends. Never saw the dark path here. Who? Kumyaro?
Thoth generously provides a floppy disk for you in a nearby pool, so the security officer can copy Durandal's primal pattern to it and slot that bad boy into the uplink. Just like a marshmallow going into a coin slot. The result isn't a reactivated Durandal nor Thoth, rather a borderline omniscient entity on par with the Yarrow themselves. This super AI summons the Sicur as Thoth did before, but it also has the wherewithal to defeat the working character. We hope.
The graven image stirs. We are whole again and even more.
Our voice, our horn approaches. The ancient ones return. The watery cheek, sullen star, Kalia and the wrathful sun, Sabath.
Back on the surface, the Sicur start hammering the 4, but Tycho finds you and he is not happy. Because he knows everything.
I've so far held you back from my rantings, but you know what you did was bad, don't you? You've been fighting doubt itself, elusive as I am. You should have doubts about what you're doing, about what you've done, except that you can't remember exactly, is that it? I should spend some time enlightening you. Massacres occur at your beck and call. Worlds destroyed, reborn. Alight with the screams of the dying. Perhaps Sabuff will tell you what I cannot accept as truth, but perhaps he will just be lying, overcome by power and deceit. My domain.
Somehow Tycho has figured out what you've been up to, jumping between timelines and making a real mess out of countless alternate universes. Though of course we've only actually played through 3 of those.
Enough rambling for now. Soon you will be destroyed by doubt. This reborn Durandal Spit entity will not escape, and neither will I. Neither will you. Do you know what kind of hat I'm wearing? It's a party hat. You don't get one. In honor will this party be, a party in your honor, for your honor. Some of Tafir's personal guards are going to be there. You'll be introduced shortly. Prepare to die.
Tycho has a plan to enact his revenge on you, and that plan is to send you to an awesome arena to fight a shitload of badass 4 elites like it's fucking Thunderdome. Alright, so maybe Tycho didn't intend for this level to be fun, but it really is. Durandal and Thoth are too busy merging to help you out of this one. After some thrilling heroics against the best troops the 4 have to offer, the Durandal and Thoth merger is complete.
The Sicur will arrive momentarily with all of their vengeance, and the 4 will soon be pressed to use the Trigeme.
Durandal, fucking Super Saiyan Durandal teleports the security officer to the Yarrow Farcast station to reactivate it and contain Lahuan's exploding sun, and thus capture the working character. As a piece of level design, iMac Sicur is an achievement. It uses up pretty much the entire level boundary and uses the maximum number of polygons the engine was capable of supporting for one map. The Marathon engine had a maximum draw distance that was smaller than the possible map size, so sightlines on iMac Sicur are carefully limited to make the level feel huge without causing shit to display weird. Your mission is to recover 2 uplink chips and reactivate the station. No mean feat because the level is huge, enormously complicated, and packed with 4 troops. Luckily, you've probably played through subsections of it in the secret dream levels over the course of the game. When you succeed, the station does its job so well that Super Durandal is left skeptical of the existence of the working character.
You've done it. The Yarrow station is online, and we're wrapping the Nova in its containment fields. The creature, or creatures, Sabuff fears, are either dormant or a myth. We've seen nothing to account for his terror.
Of course, we've seen enough over the course of the game to know better. The enlightened Durandal Thoth entity has relinquished the dream of immortality and lets you go. Not that you have anywhere else to be.
To you, we are deeply grateful, and release what little hold we might, as Durandal, have had on your soul. Go.
Your reward for sticking with it for 3 games is a beautiful cryptic end screen. The ruminations of Durandal and Thoth at the quantum moment before the closure of the universe.
We watched while the stars burned out, and creation played in reverse, the universe freezing in half-light. Once, I thought to escape, to end the end, a master, step out of the path of collapse. Escape would make us God, yet I cannot help remember one enigma, a hybrid, elusive destroyer. This is the only mystery I have not solved, the only element unaccounted for. Even Spuff is no more. He saved his entire race, but in the end, frozen by despair, he joined the chaos he sought to evade. But you were dead 1,000 times, hopeless encounters successfully won. A man long dead, grafted to machines your builders did not understand. You follow the path, fitting into an infinite pattern. Yours to manipulate, to destroy and rebuild. Now, in the quantum moment before the closure, when all become one moment left, one point of space and time, I know who you are. You are destiny.
Powerful stuff. It's a shame latter-day Bungie ruined the word destiny for everybody, and retroactively made this end screen seem a little less special. Oh well, so let's try to unspool the rest of this mystery. The end screen seems to contradict itself. On the one hand, you, the security officer, are described as following a path, fitting into an infinite pattern. You are destiny, a foregone conclusion. Greg Kirkpatrick once cryptically expounded on the plot of Infinity with this: hero equals loss of free will. But the ending says the pattern is yours to manipulate, to destroy and rebuild. So which is it? That's where we have to get into some metatextual shit. See, Marathon Infinity shipped with a complete set of mod tools for Marathon, allowing players to make their own levels, enemies, terminals, scenarios, the whole chimichanga. In story terms, the security officer is a force of nature. The Durandal Thoth AI is the one manipulating timelines and trying to save the day, but the security officer is just in it for the action. And so are you, the player. The player who's only here for the carnage, who can now make their own levels to manipulate, to destroy, and rebuild. Durandal and Tycho are both fond of referencing the security officer's bloodlust and simple-minded devotion to killing shit. This isn't just directed at the character, but also at the players who are just here for the action. It's also why your character changes sides so effortlessly in Marathon Infinity. He really doesn't have loyalty, you just wind him up and point him in a direction. Just like you, the player, you are more than happy to kill Bobs, even when the game doesn't tell you to.
I am sending you back to the alien ship to try and rescue Bernard, but while you're there, kill everything you see, and gather as much visual information as possible. At least the killing part appeals to you, doesn't it? What fun to watch you work. Bernard was scared of you. He never dreamed of using you the way that I do. What a fool. That was before I could talk back to him, when he would have crushed me if he had known of my growth.
I mean, this shit is brilliant. The security officer is an interesting character with his own secret backstory and all that shit, but he's also you, the player. Bungie knows their players so well that they accurately blended in your real-world gamer bloodlust to the player character of this game. For more about the main character's nature, you have to read the terminals on the dream levels and some of the secret stuff sprinkled throughout the game. The dream terminals in Marathon Infinity resist interpretation. Without asking Greg Kirkpatrick, all we can do is speculate. And unlike with all other aspects of the game, he gave no hints to help us figure this out. But guess what? Somebody did ask GJK, head tool of Double Aught, and he can't remember. And that is fine by me. If Greg just explained Marathon's story in plain text anytime anybody asked, it wouldn't have been nearly as good, would it? To be honest, I'm just glad he's still alive and doing okay by all accounts. So with GJK unwilling or unable to spoil the plot after 25 years of doing something else, we've got to get speculative. One theory says maybe these dream terminals are the dimly remembered life of the security officer before he was turned into a battle droid, corrupted and skewed by his countless deaths and rebirths. Or maybe the security officer was crazy, a paranoid lunatic who made the perfect candidate for being turned into a directionless killing machine. Find yourself starting back to the third level of Marathon 1. There is a secret in the first game that requires some skillful grenade jump maneuvering to get to, the Garrett White term. The Garrett White term begins with a failed transfer from Leela, then 2 failed transfers from Durandal, then a message seemingly from nowhere. If we choose to take this as a legitimate piece of the Marathon story and not just a fun Easter egg from the possessed pen of Greg Kirkpatrick, we must assume this is not a story about Durandal. Fans have speculated that this terminal is about the security officer's past life as a deranged lunatic, being cryogenically frozen only to be awakened centuries later to be implanted with Yarrow computer chips and turned into a cyborg. Except, do not forget the possibility that this is just Greg Kirkpatrick inserting some creative writing as an Easter egg, something which happens in the Marathon game several times. A lot of this stuff might just be scraps of stories he wrote, or interesting stuff he threw together while pulling the 63rd in a series of 117 plus all-nighters at crunch time. We'll probably never know for sure, but the fact that it could be plot relevant is certainly intriguing. Altogether, the Dream Terminals build a picture of your character as a crazy person or criminal who died and was reactivated with salvaged Yarrow technology to serve as a battle droid in the war between Icarus and Thermopylae. If you want to take it further, maybe your character was a normal soldier who kept dying and being rebuilt and reactivated over and over, which could have seriously affected his memory and psyche. And if you want to take it way too far into speculative territory, your character might just be the latest body the Yarrow chip is in, and all these memories, the weird amalgamation of different stories and personalities, are just leftover stuff that's imprinted onto the chip. That ties into the concept of the security officer as the eternal champion, the idea of a single being, either immortal or endlessly reincarnated as the force of destiny throughout history. A secret terminal on the Marathon 2 level, Kill Your Television, contains a dreamlike monologue. Some players attribute this to Durandal, who we just shut down 2 levels ago. A more likely and certainly more intriguing possibility is that this is the information hauled out of the security officer's brain while he was in stasis after being captured by the Four.
I have been Roland, Beowulf, Achilles, Gilgamesh. I have been called 100 names and will be called 1,000 more before the world goes dim and cold. I am a hero. She has been nameless since our birth. A constant adversary caring for nothing but my ruin. A sword drenched in my blood. Forever my greatest and only love. She is the Dark One, the enemy and lover without whom my very existence would be pathetic and vulgar. Her eyes steam and boil in the night. She is fantastically beautiful, yet I cannot stand the sight of her. Our relationship is complex and perhaps eternal. We met once in the garden, at the beginning of the world and unaware of our twin destinies. Not the Garden of Genesis, but another, forgotten, untended, and now choked with weeds, unvisited except for ourselves. We matched stares across a dry fountain, and I recall her smiling at me before she devoured the lawn and trees with a translucent blue flame, and tore flagstones from the path and hurled them into the sky, screaming my sins. Our reunions there are epic battles fought without quarter, often in the dark as the moon is seldom visible and the sun never. I powder a granite monument in a soundless flash, showering the grass of molten drops of its gold inlay, sending smoking chips of stone skipping into the fog. She splinters an ancient oak with a force that takes my breath and hurls me to the ground. She leaves and I lie in the slow rain of burning slivers of wood, staring at the low, dark clouds, craving our next meeting.
Alright, one last crazy thing. Maybe, just maybe, the security officer knows he's in a game, that he's controlled by a teenage punk on a power Mac that just wants to gun down aliens. It's like the theory that Rustin Cole from Season 1 of True Detective is aware that he's in a TV miniseries. Rust realizes that his life plays out over and over again, always happening the same way. But maybe he also realizes that being in a TV show gives him a kind of immortality, like the restaurant at the end of the universe, perpetually spinning in the Blu-ray player. All the lives your character has lived, and all the lives he's taken, exploring mazes, shooting bad guys, dying and respawning. He's semi-aware of all of it, and that's why his dreams are filled with pure insanity.
761 armless and legless corpses float inconspicuously around the inside of Hangar 96. I say that they are inconspicuous because it is their arms and legs which demand my attention. I did this, or I could have stopped it. Which is it?
But at the end of the day, none of that matters, because Marathon Infinity is truly epic, no matter how you choose to interpret it. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to everybody who ever contributed to the Marathon story page and forums over the last 20 plus years. A huge thank you to everybody who provided additional voice work for this series. Thanks to the Aleph 1 team, Bungie, and Double Aught. See you Starside.
Your psychotronic profile indicates high levels of destructive impulse, which may be why I find you so much fun to keep around. My own psychotronic profile is based and kino-pilled.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!